Hello everyone, this is Dr. Eliseda. I wanted to put this together to give a physician perspective on the transition from Centricity to eClinicalWorks. I'm a new user, wanting to go through the system, learning the terminology of eClinicalWorks and compare it to the terminology that we've been accustomed to with Centricity. I found some areas a little confusing when I was learning this system, and I put this together to make it a little easier for others to learn. So in Centricity, we have a desktop where we see our schedule, we see notes and flags and so forth. Well, here it's all done a little bit differently. In my opinion, the office visit schedule is going to be our home screen, our desktop. Then there's a patient-centered home screen called a hub, which I'll show that in a moment. And then there's the problem lists and assessments we're going to go through in the terminology of that. And of course, our progress note with a SOAP note. So let's just start off with this screen here. You can get to this screen by clicking the S button. They call it a jelly bean. Doesn't even look like a jelly bean, but anyways. You click on this default button. Right now I don't have any action items, but if you click on the S, you can see what that S button means. But it's the progress note, office visits, and the schedule. So for the moment, we're just going to click on this S. So I click on it, and it opens up the same screen that I've already been clicking on. Here I have, instead of my provider, I have a test provider, just for the sake of demonstration, and we have a series of fake patients so we can just view. The first fake patient I'm going to click on is one called ADC NEF3 that I opened earlier. So all you do is double click on it, and it's an open visit. If it was a signed visit, in Centricity we sign things, here you lock things. Why they chose that word, I don't know, but they did. So let's just go through an unlocked. You could tell it's unlocked, whereas the one above it is a locked note. Let's go through the unlocked visit. So here we go. Let me click on one called ADC NEF. It's a patient, a fake patient. And I already opened this up earlier, and I added this medical history just to kind of give you an idea what it would look like. In here, it's a SOAP note. So it's structured as a HPI, the list of medications, medical history, surgical history, basically a SOAP note. We're all accustomed to SOAP notes. You can't just free text in here anywhere. You can't just start typing and you get information on the screen, unlike Centricity where you can. Here it's all linked within a section like medical history. You can free text within that. You can free text within surgical history, hospitalization, and so forth. But it's structured a little different. On a subsequent video, I'm going to go through the detail of each and every one of these buttons, but I wanted to give a quick overview. We can view old notes through encounters. So here's an existing progress note. I haven't created anything in it, but if you wanted to view an old note, there's several ways to do it. In fact, there's always several ways to do things in eClinicalWorks, but so you just learn one and move with that. This one is an encounter. You can click on that and you can see all the prior encounters, whether they were a telephone note or they were a previous encounter. You just double click on it. You can see that I created a telephone encounter. Here's a little message that I posted to myself as a test. You can see a progress note I did on the 31st on this fake patient, and you can view it. You can enlarge the screen. You could print it. You could do all sorts of stuff with this, but you can see all the different encounters. You can sort, and if you have a massive number of encounters, well, you could limit it to a certain facility, a certain diagnosis, a certain physician. So you could limit what you see on this screen very nicely. Another quick place to see a whole bunch of encounters is the medical summary. The medical summary is actually very nice. It's pretty. You can see a list of all of the medical problems and when they were added. You can see a list of the current medications, surgical history, and these encounters. And the encounters includes the assessments, diagnosis. They call it assessment on one screen, diagnosis on another screen. There's definitely a lack of consistency within eClinicalWorks. But either way, it works. And it's a pretty powerful program. So in here, you have you can see all of the encounters. If you want to view all of the labs, well, you can click on two places. One is the flow sheet, which we are accustomed to. You click on the flow sheet and you can see it in a flow sheet format you can click on, there's no data in this because this is a temporary fake patient, but had there been data in here, you just click on the flow sheet. You'll have your own group of favorites. You click on it, you can view the flow sheet, which we're accustomed to in eClinicalWorks, and you have the graphic view, and you can view, you can trend your serum creatinine or whatever you need to trend. You can hide empty columns, hide empty rows. That's a very nice feature. You can set the date range and so forth. You could print it, fax it. You can send it to the patient, whatever you want to do. And if the patient is linked to the web application, it's very powerful. You can send them labs, you can send them reports, you can send them notes. It's actually very, very nice. So another area where you can view labs is under the labs tab. And this shows you all the ordered labs that have been resulted. And once again, you could click on the big category, show the chemistries, whatever. Well, this patient doesn't have a lot of data here, but you would click on the plus to expand it. You would see a list of values. List of values for the renal function. This is just done, formatted a little differently. I like the flow sheet format better than I like clicking on each and every one of these encounters. In Centricity, we had basically the labs came in as a note. You have to click on the note to view it. Same way here. They just separated it out from the note section then they put it in the labs. And this is identical to procedures. If you had any kind of procedures that was done on the patient, or diagnostic imaging, all radiology, ultrasounds, etc., will all be listed here with the results showing up in here. You just double click and you can view the results. Okay, so I want to save the changes. No, let's not save it. So I'm just kind of going through the overall view. There's a section called patient docs. Now, once again, their terminology is confusing. These are just chart documents. It's other documents that are not progress notes. It's basically anything that was scanned into the system. It goes into the computer and put in these folders. So anything that's scanned, added, obtained somehow to the server, that you'll find them in this area under whatever category. The nice thing about it is we can scan directly from our office and put whatever we want. Let's say we got old records from a patient. We could quickly scan it and put it in here so we don't lose it. I like this feature. It seems very easy to add. Let's go through another category here. On the right, in each of the screens, you'll see this area where it makes it easier to populate data into your note. So we're going to review each and every one of these in another video, but this is a place where you can quickly add a problem. If you currently look at my assessment down here, I don't have any, but I could take an assessment from a prior problem. You just click on this and you can add it to the assessment really easily. In fact, if I click on the plus sign, it can expand and view all the notes that were ever created that linked that problem as an assessment. There's a term here that we need to talk about: assessment versus problem list. An assessment is a diagnosis that is linked to that progress note. If you so choose, you can include that assessment as a problem list that adds and carries forward to every single visit. Whereas an assessment doesn't carry forward, it's just part of that one one progress note. For example, you can have a UTI. Well, that may not be a problem that you want to carry forever in the problem list. You would make an assessment, UTI, or well check, or something on those lines, and that is an assessment for that visit, but it's not necessarily a problem that needs to go on their problem list. So they are a little different. Anything that goes in the problem list is viewable by all physicians at all visits going forward. Anything added to surgical history, family history, social history, medical history are all shared with all the providers in our multi-specialty clinic, whereas the assessment is unique to the progress note. But when we add an assessment, we can easily add an assessment and include it in the progress note. So if I added an assessment, I'm just going to do one real quick to give an idea. I'm gonna type, let's say, CKD, and hit enter, and I can see a list of all the CKDs. Here's, let's say, stage 4 CKD. If I click on this little button, I've added it now to the problem list. If I remove it from this little button, it's not going to add to the problem list. And that's basically how you link them together. You can add notes, free text notes down here, whatever you want to say. That will add it to the notes. So I'm going to say this is a set, I don't know, this is an example of notes. Okay. You can add it there. You can add it linked. You can have notes specific to the patient. Has, Theo, well, I guess Theo has been ruled out or whatever you want to write. Theo has been ruled out. Ruled out. I mean, yeah. Anyways, the point being, I'm just doing this real quick to give an example. That note, since there's a checkbox at the problem list, that note will be shared by everybody on the subsequent problem lists. So you don't always want to add the notes and include it with the problem list. If I remove that checkbox, this note will be unique to this progress note. So it's unique to this note. If I click on this little checkbox, now it is shared. It's been added to the problem list and includes that set of note that would be carried forward, which is useful for some things. You want it to carry forward. Other things you don't want to carry forward. So you'll learn that some things are carried forward, some things are not. You can type notes. Some things you want the patient to see, other things you don't want the patient to see. So eClinicalWorks has that capability. So when we go through more of the detailed steps of this, we'll point that out. The last thing I want to show is flags. In Centricity, we called it flags. In eClinicalWorks, are called actions. So we can create an action simply by going, I guess there's a few ways to do it, but I'm just going to do the one way that I always remember. So always through the hub. The patient hub is linked, is a whole set of, like a home page for the patient. It has a whole bunch of stuff unique to the patient. We're going to have a video what all of these buttons mean, but it's basically all the documents for the button for the patient. Some of these are repeated. We saw them on the previous page. Medical summary, encounters. Once again, the same button we saw on the previous screen. You can do a new appointment for future, a new telephone encounter. But the one I wanted to show for this moment is the action. You can create an action just like a flag here, and it links it with the patient, and you can assign it to somebody to perform that action. You can change the date for future. You can make the action recurring, that is every month or every 2 weeks. Many of our erythropoietin patients need labs every 2 weeks. That's a good place where we would send an action to our nurse and so forth. You can also create recurring lab orders, which is actually pretty nice. That's done in another screen, but the system is very capable. So I wanted to give a quick overview of eClinicalWorks and compare it to Centricity. And you'll see additional videos with the more details and of each of the steps. Thanks.